Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Forrest out in St. Louis. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful Monday. I know I am still coming out of the ether from last week. Still coming out of the ether from this last 4 days of the Social Media Super Summit. It was absolutely amazing. Um, it, it was a social media super summit with a very strong emphasis on mindset, right? And going into business and just the whole theme. There's just a lot of themes going around of adjustments, mindset adjustments. And one thing I got an opportunity today, had a coaching session actually with Ray Higdon, who was our mentor on the marketing side, which is very cool. I asked him what book that he was reading, and he's reading he recommended. I asked him, actually the question is like to just become better at being a coach, and he explained why, and going all that, and sort of why I'm doing this series is to read Psycho Cybernetics, which I actually ordered and downloaded on my Kindle reader. So I'm going to actually start reading that and get a little bit into that right after this is over. And the whole point of that is to help. One of the things that we discover is it's cool to have a system and a process. It's like the banner behind me says, success steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I run what I call a simple. Actually, that I just realized my banner spelled wrong. Hold on one second. Let me fix that. And save. There we go. Got that back right. So cool, cool, cool. So, being running a simple 4-step system is what I do, and it was a process that I had to do to really get myself focused, to give me a system that I could be very, very focused on. That I could, if somebody asked me how to do something, I could say step 1, 2, 3, 4, because I can get very complicated. I get squirrelitis. I'm point over here, point over there, and I can get I can build a blog from scratch and pull all the side widgets and the sidebar widgets and put in widgets and embed videos and do CSS and HTML, all that kind of stuff, and I can actually freak somebody out. Well, in terms of building a network marketing business, you don't need to do all that. You don't even have to do a Facebook Live, right? You need to be able to ask somebody if they're open to take a look at your product, service, or opportunity. You need to be able to send them a link, right? You need to be able to set a follow-up, and you need to know what to do in that follow-up, whether it's enroll them, customer, maybe get some help from somebody that's around has a little bit more experience. But basically, it's 4 steps. It's not a complicated system. Now, above and beyond and sort of behind the scenes on that, it's getting all the garbage out of here so you feel worthy. So you feel worthy when you start to have the success, right? You can get into ether and get excited and start sending out presentations, and you get all excited, and then you freak out when somebody asks you a hard question, or you freak out when somebody gives you a headache, or maybe somebody comes on your team and just goes all sideways negative on you. If you don't have the stuff up here sort of sorted out, it's going to stress you out. Or if you have something that you're driving back, like last night we talked about owning. Not owning your broken, right? You don't have to forget it, but you don't have to own it. You don't have to live in it. You don't have to constantly do that. So tonight is basically what happened in the past doesn't have to be a life sentence. We don't have to bring that so far forward. And this goes right along with what we talked about yesterday. It doesn't have to be a life sentence. It's not something that if you got divorced, one of the questions that was asked, and I remember this, is the gentleman was asking this guy who's talking about him. He says, the question he asked, he says, are you married or single? And the guy says, I'm divorced. He says, you're not listening to my question. Are you married or single? And he says, well, I'm divorced. And he says, are you married or single? And he says, well, I'm divorced. And he said, well, let me make my point. Is you're either married or you're single, right? Divorced isn't an option. It's either you're married or single. Divorced is single, right? So what he was doing was he'd been divorced for 13 years. So he's carrying that ball and chain along with him as a life sentence for a reason, right? He committed to a life sentence of I'm a divorcee rather than I'm single, that I'm an opportunity that I can now be available on the market. He was like, I'm a divorcee. Like it was something that's like he had the big D on his head. Like I'm a divorcee. Nobody wants me. Everybody hates me. I'm going to eat some worms, right? And that's the life sentence that is going to carry us along and move us forward. And we probably, a lot of us probably have that type of deal. You may have that type of deal. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to jump into this, and I'm working out a Purpose-Driven Life, which is a very cool book. It's part of Rick Warren's training here. And the cool thing about it is I was actually sitting down tonight because one of my missions is what do I want to be known for? And as I'm working through my day and I'm doing my processes, it's all coming into very, very clear light of working through my system, my 4-step system, and being able to teach people and really embed that in the process, along with doing some mindset shift and mindset adjustment and self-improvement along the way, so I can run a system to build a business while I'm running a system to build this business, so I can run a system, if that makes sense. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. So anyway, you are not an accident. I'm your creator. You were in my care even before you were born, says the Lord. Isaiah 44:2. And basically, he knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb, if you want to go that far back. He knows everything that's going on. Our decisions, the will that God gives us, right? We have a will. We can make decisions on an instant which direction we want to go in. We can make a decision if we want to continually drag that mess from the past along with us, or we can cut it loose. Now, the cool thing about it is hopefully, we learn from that. One of the things that I've seen in the 32 plus years of recovery, especially in the beginning years, I learned is you'll see people that go through relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship, and it always ends up horribly. And the common denominator from all of those multiple relationships is you, right? If you're constantly going through relationships where it's this person, this person, this person, and they all end up bad, the common denominator from all of those relationships is you. And the reason being is from whatever stuff you have in your past, right? You've embedded that in you. So you're naturally attracted to that type of person. The person may be in a different body with a different name, but they have the same characteristics. So until you can look in the mirror, until you can take an inventory and say, what happened in that relationship? What happened in that relationship? You take an inventory. What part did I play? What part did they play? And you look at those and you list all those bad relationships down, or I should say relationships that didn't go the way you wanted them to go, right? Not necessarily bad relationships. Somebody says they made bad decisions. And I had commented, I said, you don't make bad decisions. You just make decisions that don't end up the way you want, right? So there's a bad decision might be jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. That's probably a bad decision, right? Getting on an airplane and taking a trip and spending all your money, that might be a decision you didn't really want to end up the way you wanted it to, right? Was it a decision that didn't have a really good outcome? Yeah. Was it a bad decision? Yeah, I don't know. You can look at it anyway. So point to ponder. I am not an accident. None of us were here for an accident. Every single person on this planet has a purpose. Your purpose may be to impact one person's life. Your purpose may be to inspire somebody. Your purpose may be to have your children so they go off and be great people. Your children, your purpose may be to marry this person to make an impact on the next person that's going to make an impact on the next person. Whatever it is, you have a purpose. There's some reason that you're here for whatever time, for whatever season that you have. And you need to realize that you are not an accident, right? So questions to consider. Knowing that God created me for a purpose, here's a question for you. What areas of my personality, my background, and appearance do I need to accept? One of the neat things that I really like is one of my favorites. You might want to write this down, is the acceptance prayer. And I don't remember the entire thing, but you can Google it. It says, acceptance is the answer to all of my problems. Until I can accept every person, place, thing, situation, and God as exactly how they're supposed to be at this very moment, I will not find peace. You can go, I changed it around a little bit. That's the way I like to say it, but you can actually Google the acceptance prayer, and it's very cool. It's pretty in depth. But when we continue and we accept, now it's not condoning it. It's just saying stuff is the way it is right now because it is. I have no control over that. I do have control over how I react. I have control over how I respond, and I have control how I can move forward, right? So when we look at those things, I accept this how it is right now. So I accept the thing that I came out of a bad marriage, I came out of a marriage that didn't end up the way I wanted to. I can accept that. So what am I going to do to fix that? How am I going to take inventory and put that down on a piece of paper and say, what do I need to do to move forward? What areas of my personality, background, and appearance do I need to accept? Now that you accepted those, right? Now that you have accepted those, we need to take a look at, is it something I need to change? Do I have a bad personality? Do I have bad habits? Is there something I can adjust and correct so that I can move forward and a little bit better in life? Long before you were conceived in your parents, you were conceived in the mind of God. It is not fate, nor chance, nor luck, nor coincidence that you are breathing at this very moment. You are alive because God wanted to create you. So when we look at that and understand, for those of you that are like, what's Forrest talking about? I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. If that offends you, I'll pray for you. I love you anyway. That's okay. And I'm going to accept you the way you are. One of the neatest things that I ever learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a lot, was being able to love people where they're at, right? Being able to accept people even though I maybe didn't agree with them. And you'll notice nowadays, especially in the political environment, people get all cray-cray about stuff. It's like you can't disagree with somebody. It's like no gray area. It's like either black or white. You can't have a dialogue and a conversation. And I realized the reason some people are so stuck on the D or the R is because they don't want to admit, they've been so ingrained in that path for so many years, is they don't want to admit that, ooh, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe my way of thinking was a little bit jacked up. Maybe my attitude needs an adjustment. Maybe I'm going to justify why I cussed that person out because they were wearing a shirt I didn't like, or wearing a hat I didn't like, or didn't agree with something in politics I didn't like. I cussed them out. Now, if I back off of that, I'm going to look like an idiot more than the idiot I was and acting a fool. I'm going to look even like a bigger idiot if I apologize and say, you know what, you were right. So a lot of times people will draw a line in the sand because they don't want to admit that they were just literally wrong. They don't want to admit that they're being mean, or they're being incourteous, or they're being just, I don't know, bad people, right? They don't want to own that. They just don't. They just want to stay stuck in this. Like, I said it, I went there. I don't care. I don't care what you think. I'm just going to stay stuck in that. And they draw the line in the sand because they want to save face, right? It's sort of like in sales. In sales, a customer, a lot of times, and this is a sales tactic that salespeople use, right? A customer will sit down and he'll go through, and the salesperson will overcome objection, overcome objection, overcome objection, overcome objection, and the customer will say no, 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 right? The sales guy's like, man, I know this person wants to buy this car. I just can't figure it out. Here's what's going on in that. The customer is saving face by telling the salesperson no. So the smart salesperson says, you know what, Mr. Customer, I've got an idea. I'll be right back. He goes and gets another salesperson, or maybe a manager or somebody. He brings the manager in. And here's what's funny. The manager will say exactly the same thing the sales guy just did. However, the customer now can say something different to the manager because he's not losing face with that person. He's losing face with the other person that he told no, right? He told no, but he's not losing face with the manager. So now he can say yes to this new person that's in front of him because he's not losing credibility with the person that's in front of him. He's still saying no to the other person, but he's saying yes to this person. So sometimes that's just a human nature kind of way that we think. So when you're having conversations with people and you might be going back and forth and going back and forth and going back and forth, sometimes you might want to stop and just say, hey, you know what? I have a great idea. You might want to go talk to this person over here, and maybe and see, you can work your way around that. Maybe let's go talk to this person over here so you can get a second opinion, right? It's a really cool closing technique on a sales side. If it's just a general conversation, a lot of times if you bring in a third party, neutral third party, say, you know what, I'm going to step out here, you two can talk, and now they can actually save face by changing their course and direction with this person, right? Because they're a third party, and that's where counselors come in and things like that, where you can actually go into counseling because they're a neutral party, and you can say something to a counselor that you can't say to the other person because you're not losing face with the counselor, right? So it's a weird dichotomy in how we think and how we roll like that. So just remember that you are not an accident. You were born here for a purpose. I want you to love on yourself. And here's your homework for the night. If you choose it, go look in the mirror and write this down. Say, I am not an accident. And then these are the questions you need to ask yourself. What areas of your personality, background, and appearance do you need to accept? What areas of your personality, background, and appearance do you need to accept? And write those down and take a look at those and see if that's something that you can live with and that you can walk through life and be happy with. And if you're not, if you can't accept maybe your physical appearance, what are you going to do differently moving forward to change that? Are you going to constantly beat yourself up and use it as an excuse not to move forward? Or are you going to use it as an excuse to make a change and go make an impact on somebody else's life and move forward? So I'm going to close with that. I think if you got some value out of that, share your number one takeaway. I would also like to challenge you to do this. I just downloaded, is that a word? Just ordered what did you say? Psycho-Cybernetics as a book. And I'm going to start reading that on top of doing this here because of, again, my mentor said that. So if you've read that book, the Psycho-Cybernetics, feel free to share your number one takeaway with me. If you haven't read that book and you feel like it might be something to impact your life, definitely do that. I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to go a little bit more into marketing. I'm going to talk about being unreasonably ridiculously coachable. And I'm going to tell my story and how that applies, and hopefully that'll make an impact for you as well. I love you. Jesus loves you. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. I'm on a mission to have no more empty refrigerators, make an extreme impact, and be a legacy creator. I hope you are too. We will see you tomorrow. Good night.